Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Big Data London webinar. So this is the first in a series of some data transformation stories, and we're delighted today to be joined by Swiss energy giant BWK Energie. So I'm Andy Steed, Content Director of Big Data London, and joining me today are Benjamin Möller. Say hello, Benjamin.
Oh.
He's from BWK Energie, and Ian Funnell from their technology partners, Matillion. Hi, Ian.
Hi, folks.
So these sessions are designed to be interactive. Please send in your questions at any time, and I'll endeavour to ask as many as I can at the end of the presentations. But without further ado, I'd like to pass on to our first presenter. Over to you, Ben.
Okay, thank you very much. Perfect. So I'm going to tell you something about our transformation of our trading BI landscape into the cloud. Now, okay. First, something about BKW. BKW is one of the three leading Swiss energy and service companies, and we are right now migrating our complete BI stack for trading and customer reporting to the public cloud. I will try to share here my experience working with Matillion, show some use cases, timelines, achievements, and happy to answer questions. First, I start with an initial situation. We are currently on a traditional landscape with Oracle as source systems, SAP data services as our ETL tool, and store also the data in our Oracle environment. It's an in-memory environment, 12G, with currently 12 CPUs and 240 GB of RAM. Afterwards, we use, again, SAP business objects, so not the SAP analytics or SAP BW. We're using business objects to do our reporting. We went live with the solutions in 2018, coming from a smaller data warehouse, smaller trading system as a source system. And we are live now since February 2018. Currently, we use from our in-memory setup that's not actually data. It's 1 month old, so we are currently at around 45 to 50% of the in-memory usage, even more. We use all the 12 CPUs, and as you can see here, we have some spikes. We have in the morning, we really use our CPU from around 4 o'clock to around 9:30, and the rest of the day, the machine is just not in use. It's sometimes an SQL, sometimes a report, but the majority of the usage is in the morning. And as you can see, backup, we have a lot of data, so backup takes some time. That's another big peak. A little bit about our sizing. We have a daily data growth of about 10 to 40 gigabyte per day. 10 to 40 is a huge variance. Depends on the trading system, what's happened there, how many corrections we have. For example, if a forward curve, a market price curve was wrong in the morning, we need to correct that. So we need to reload everything and we store everything what we loaded. So we have slowly changing dimensions also on, or technique of slowly changing dimensions also on our fact tables. So that's the reason why we have so different data growth. But in general, you can say it's 15 to 20 gigabyte per day. That's the average. The biggest table right now has, what is it? 15 billion rows. It's a little bit bigger than a terabyte, and more than half of the size. We have also 4 indexes. So that's the current situation. That's also one of the reasons why we decided to go to the cloud. You can see that slide. We have started in 2018 with around 5 million rows per day. We end up in December last year with 30 million rows a day in the biggest table. It's more if you consider all tables, but in the biggest table, we started then with 23 million rows this year, and we will end up, it's quite a linear trend, we will end up with around 40 million 40 to 50 million rows per day. What ends up that we will have around 11 billion rows by end of the year. The next chart, you can see our daily jobs. Here you can also see one of the main reasons why we decided to go to cloud and to Matillion. The blue line is the initial job when we went live. You see we had quite some issues with performance, so we did a lot of work on it to have it better. That works quite well. Last year, again, we modified our code to have it better, with more performance. Also, it's working quite well, but still we have a linear trend. More data, we can do things better to have a lower baseline, but in general, we will have a data growth, so we will have also a performance issue by end of this year. That's the reasons why we decided to look if we can have better performance, maybe even lower costs in the cloud. Something about our customers. We have in general 3 main customers. Our main customer, the biggest customer, internal customer, is our energy trading department. Energy trading, you can imagine, is quite similar to bank trading. It's you trade power, gas, coal, oil, futures, options, things like that. So we have clustered some key figures. That's risk management key figures, and that's profitability key figures, which we need to calculate every day. We have a deadline or a guidance. Let's say it's a guidance of less than 3 hours. So we aim to be finished morning before 6 o'clock. The trading system does it initial calculations, load the data, do some initial pre-calculations. Took 3 hours, so we have 3 hours to go to be in time, and that we achieve right now, but we will not achieve by end of the year. Second customer are smaller customers. That's external customers. They don't have own data warehousing. They have small data sets, sometimes different requirements. So we offer for our external customers to do the reporting on our machines. To do a standard reporting, we really try to offer all customers the same reporting, just with different input data. And to have this success story, we need to be fast and not expensive. If it's too expensive, customers will not do it with us. They will try to do it alone. So we need to be fast, easy, and not expensive. And the third customer we provide reporting right now is our internal portfolio management. There is the complexity more in the way the data is available. So we have no classical ERD process where we just can start at the time they need to extract data from their system. That took between 10 minutes and 10 hours, depends on what they are doing. There is no API, there is no REST interface. So there's more the complexity to be finished in time, to look how we can get the data and to have a fast ELT process afterwards. That was our initial situation, and then now why do we decide to go with Matillion? At the end, we started with the decision on which database we want to go, and after some tests and POCs, we came up that Snowflake fits our requirements best. Main reasons are that there is no infrastructure in our house, so it's really a cloud solution. There is nearly no tuning, there is nearly no optimization, there are no indexes, so much better and much smaller data sizes. There is no storage problem. Storage is cheap and fast. We don't need to take care about backups and things like that. We don't need to look too much to workload management. We just implement it and it works. And after that, we decided, okay, we need to find a proper ELT tool to work best with Snowflake. Then we had to decide, do we want to switch our logic from the traditional ETL to modern ELT? And there was quite clear we want to do that. We want to use the power of Snowflake, and we want to have all the power of Snowflake used in our daily process. So we decided to go for an ELT approach, and then went to the next situation. What is the best tool to handle that? We put up a list with some requirements. One of the biggest requirements was that the software must run on our private Azure cloud. We have a private Azure cloud, so we are only authorized to use or to access BKW internal servers if we are coming from that cloud. So with a public cloud, we would not be allowed to load data from our internal systems. With this solution, where we have Azure cloud running and Matillion on this Azure cloud, we don't have any issues there. The next point was that we really need a proper REST API, because our main system, the trading system, triggers us with REST web service. Personal wish was that we don't use any clients anymore, just that we are able to work from wherever we are. And that's currently a good situation now with the crisis. We can work from home without any issues. Then we had the wish from some analytics guys that we need to be able to run Python scripts. And my developer are used to SAP Data Services, which is a graphical user interface, and they were quite happy with. So we looked for a system with a proper, nice graphical user interface, just to have an easy and nice transformation phase. For security reasons, we aimed that no data should kept on the ELT environment. So everything is on Snowflake and nothing is stored in any server. And we want to use Git, because we use Git also for our DevOps and for our front-end tool, Looker. So we want to have Git also working there. And important thing, we want to have a flexible pricing models. So we have possibilities of both. We have a fixed price for the main system, but we also can have consumption prices if we want to have other customers, other developers using Matillion on a rarely basis. If it's not a daily job or a 24/7 job, just for I need it once a week or something like that, we are able to implement also this model. That's at the end the slide where we said, why is Matillion good for us? It has a graphical user interface. It is built for the cloud. There is just no client software. You cannot just have it anywhere else than in the cloud. It's highly scalable, because the complete logic is really pushed to Snowflake. There's nothing what is not pushed to Snowflake. So if you have a fast data warehouse like Snowflake, you will have fast ETL. There is no own data management. Everything is on Snowflake. It's just the rules, the roles, the role level security on Snowflake, but there is no own data management in Matillion. And we found it's quite cost effective compared to other competitors. And it's a really perfect interaction with Snowflake. So if Snowflake adds new functionality, Matillion will have the functionality some days later or weeks. It's really nice. And that was also something what we internally in the team discussed. We want to go with partners which are modern, even maybe young, which are really open-minded and well-documented. And that's a great thing. All the three tools we're using, Matillion, Snowflake, and Looker, are super cool documented. So I was able, and I'm really not a developer, to do my first Matillion jobs with just a little help of a developer of mine. He explained me how to do things, and everything else I could just read from the documentation, and it works. So it's really nice. Another thing what is really cool, what we're using a lot, are shared jobs. So you define a job and you can reuse this job wherever you need it. So you don't need to reinvent the world each time. We have a job framework which is working, which is developed with Python. So it's quite known language. That's also a nice thing. Whenever we have a problem with Matillion, we will find experts who could help us, because it's not only Matillion know-how. It's if you can use Python, if you know SQL, a lot of the things you can work with Matillion, without having special knowledge just of Matillion. And it's a really good amount of supported data sources. So we mainly use Oracle as a data source, but there are a lot of interfaces for Facebook, Google, CRM systems, different data warehouses, databases. So really no problem. And what is one of the greatest features, you can write your own components. So look, Matillion offers a lot of predefined components, and if there's a logic which is not available by Looker, you can write it by yourself. If you can write it with Python or SQL, that's really nice. Then just highlighting our ecosystem we decided to go with. It's at the database, it's Snowflake. The ELT tool is Matillion, and our front-end tool is Looker. All three partners are young companies, are modern companies, having quite nice architectures and ideas. They are all web-based, so there is no need for any client installation. They are all system version controlled by Git. They are highly scalable, and they relate to the database. That's also a quite nice thing. We can maintain the performance by just at the end spending money in Snowflake and not spending money, oh, we need a faster environment there, we need a faster environment there, we need to do this. At the end, if the code is properly written, you still need to do that, then we can just increase the warehouse of Snowflake and everything else will be faster. Okay, where we are right now. We started with our project in January. Now in May, I can say our job framework is designed, implemented, and productive for our external customers since March. Our orchestration, so how do all jobs work together, is designed, implemented, product for external customers also since March. And all that we achieved without external consulting of Matillion or Snowflake consultants. We do have consultants, but these are consultants we work with since years. So they're used to the company, they're used to our work methods, but we're not used to Matillion or Snowflake or Looker. But the tools are this good documented and clear structured and has a good architecture that we really were able to familiarize ourselves quite fast. We are able to decrease the runtimes of the portfolio management job, which took in the past around 120 minutes to now around 20 minutes. And we will have much better results with the bigger system where we have the trading system, where we are right now at 150, 160 minutes, and I would bet that the decrease is there even higher. That's just a small note. Matillion and Snowflake are really good if you have long-running jobs. It both makes the system faster. But yes, you will not be able to be faster if you're fast right now. So if you have a job which took 15 minutes, yeah, it will still take 15 minutes. There's just so much things to do before you really can start a job. You need to compile everything. You need to validate everything. You need to prepare everything. So if you have a bigger framework, a bigger orchestration, you will have some additional time just for prepare everything. But as soon as the job really runs, it's much, much, much faster as that what we had right now. Yeah, we are now 4 to 5 months in this project, and we are quite confident that we will be able to fully migrate the complete BI stack to the cloud by end of September. So a project where we migrate 3 data warehouses, a lot of jobs, a lot of reports, and we are a small team with 4 internal people and 2 external. We will be able to deliver by end of September. I'm really confident that we can stick to that plan. So that's really, really nice. And we did the same project, or nearly the same project in 2018, and there it took much longer because you just need to spend so much more time on performance tuning, on fine-tune everything. Okay, how can I make the data set smaller, that the report is faster? How can I do that is faster? Now we really can focus on the result, on that what the customer wants to have, and not how do we tweak the system that it's fast enough. And because of modern architecture, modern names, we were able to already onboard or acquire new customers, internal customers, which did their job right now by their own, and they say, hey, we would use your environment, we would like to use your technology, could you help us? Would be never happen with the old stack. Yeah, as I explained earlier, there are also some weak points. The time, as I told you, you need to compile and validate each job. It takes some time. And if your job was really fast before, and it will not be much faster now. If the job was slow before or 15 minutes before because the database took 10 minutes of the 15 minutes to run the code, then yes, you will still then be faster. But if it's a small data set and a small thing, then there will be no real big gains of performance. But if you have long-running jobs, complex jobs, you will be much faster. And another little downtime maybe is Matillion is not really a software as a service. So you need to install it on your cloud by yourself. You need to update it by yourself. That's maybe a downside for us. It's not a problem. It's maybe even better, because if it would be a software as a service, we were not able to go to, we would be in the public cloud, and then we would not be allowed to use Matillion to direct load data from our source tables. And at the end, I must say, ETL or ELT is much more complex and much more sensitive to errors than a front-end reporting tool. So if a report is not nice or not proper or wrong, you fix it and that's it. If your 11 billion rows big database is corrupted because you had a wrong job, wrong code, it's much worse. So it's not a downside for me that you need to do it by yourself, but yes, it is not SaaS, and would be nice if there would be an offer of Matillion for customers which are not related to the security. You need to have a system in-house to allow to access data. So that's it. I would like to hand over to Ian, if that's okay.
Brilliant. Thank you. I will share my screen here, Ben. If you could stop your presentation. Excellent. Thank you. I will share mine. Just bear with me for one moment. Hopefully that's coming through for everybody. Yeah, just before I dive in there, Ben, just thank you for sharing those insights into how you've used Matillion. From my side on the delivery of Matillion, the software, it's really nice to spend a little bit of time seeing what people are doing with the tool. We actually, quite surprisingly, sometimes don't see that very often, because as you've explained, people often take the tool and just go off and run with it. We never hear some of the things that they're doing. So that's nice to see. So I'm going to spend perhaps 15 minutes to give everybody a live demonstration of the product itself, and maybe bring to life some of those things that Ben was describing in the presentation there. So on the screen, what I'm showing is Matillion ETL, the software, and this is what it looks like when it is running. I'm going to show you some of the features of the product, give you a feel for the way it is when you're working with it, I'll finish up by just describing our unique pricing model and some of the ways that you can try it out for yourself. So a couple of points just to begin with. The thing that you're seeing on the screen here is a job that I have built. This is a data transformation job, and it takes data from a couple of places and does some transformation and integration. In a few minutes' time, after I've talked through this one, I'll show you how you can load data into Snowflake from different places, and then give you an idea of some of the automation features on top of that as well. One point before I dive into the details, as Ben mentioned, there is no client software for this. If anybody's wondering, the client software that I'm using here is just a web browser, and all I've done is gone to my IP address of my Matillion server, which is running in my private cloud. You can use private, hybrid, or public cloud. Up to you for this. You'll notice if you're sharp-eyed, this is a private IP address, by the way, but nevertheless, it is running in the cloud. There is security-wise and some important aspects to that. This is not a SaaS product. As Ben mentioned, when you launch a Matillion instance, it is running in your private cloud, so nobody else in the world can see what's going on there. And typically, you establish VPNs in between your sources and targets, etc. I'll dive into this job here. This is a civil aviation data set that I have here. Two main source tables. I have a table here with, let's find out, 123 million rows of data. And when I press the data sample here, I get a top 50 or so records back just to see what they look like. Every record here is one domestic flight somewhere in the US. Also have a reference table of aircraft. Of course, every flight involved one aircraft, and these two data sets are obviously related. They've got about 5,000 distinct aircraft here, which were involved in all of these millions of flights. So these tables are sitting in Snowflake currently. I'll talk in a moment about the kind of transformations you can do. Broadly, you have a palette of components which you can use from over here, and I'll show you one straight away. Let me get that data sample back here. I can see random top 50 records out of the data set here, a lot of 1995s. I don't know if that's typical or if that's just by chance. So one of the things that it is very common for you to do when you're developing with Matillion is to just work through and do a little bit of interrogation or some basic profiling of the data, which you can do very easily in real time yourself in this kind of way. So I'm going to use an aggregation component there, and I will get a count of records by year. Now, a few important things to notice. I'm going to kick this off. So remember, I have 123 million rows at source there, and usually this is it actually get the result quicker than I can explain what's going on. But every time I hit this button, and I'll do this a few times, it really is running a live query against Snowflake and aggregating those 123 million down into 22 rows in this case that I can see here. And this is the reason for some of those performance benefits that Ben was talking about, the ability to take a really very finely hand-tuned solution from a legacy database and bring that really very easily into a cloud and be able to achieve great performance benefits like this. I would love, by the way, to tell you that it was Matillion that was handling this data this quickly, but it isn't. It's actually Snowflake, because, as Ben was saying, all of this gets pushed down onto Snowflake at every opportunity. And the way we do that actually is to use SQL. So no secrets behind the way the tool works. You can see the generated SQL here at any time you want to do. And as you can see, this is generated SQL. I did not have to hand type any of that. In fact, I did not even need to know that an aggregate is a group by in SQL. So as Ben was explaining, even not being from a development background, he was able to get up and running very quickly. And we've deliberately tried to design the tool in that way to be intuitive and to make it accessible and to democratize the access to your data. So one of the big problems with certainly with cost and maintainability with legacy tools was that your very first problem was having to understand how that tool works, let alone start to address your data problems. So just hope the demonstration there brought that to life a little bit for you. Some fairly typical things that you need to do with regard to data, to working on your data transformations, are applying filters, which is one of these. And the kind of thing that you would need to do is express your filter a bit like the way that you used to do this maybe in Excel with like a macro kind of language. Again, if you, I'm doing this all in real time, so you can see what's going on here. Again, I don't need to be a SQL genius to put a filter in there, and it's really easy to maintain. If I come back to this next week, it's going to be really quick for me to understand what's going on here, and you get very quick feedback as to the result of your transformations. So I've got 120 million rows in my source table here. If I put a filter, month is equal to 4, then I'm going to have a guess. I'm going to get about 10 million rows back after that filter is applied, and that gives me confidence that that's about right. Also, you can combine these, of course, to develop more sophisticated rules. If I change this up to 2002, for example, and I get a row count from the resulting filter there, I'm hoping to see maybe half. Right, okay, something badly gone wrong here. No rows at all match that filter. I must have done something wrong. And indeed, perfectly valid SQL, but I've put one too many 0 in my value there. But I'm able to detect that logic error very quickly by, there we go, that's better. I've got 3 million rows that match the criteria there. This is a kind of transactional type data that I have over here. Let's take a little dive into the reference data set. This is the aircraft which were involved in the flights, and I've got, let's have a look at the data. I've got a few thousand rows in here. It's far from perfect, the data. I've got what looks like a unique identifier, a primary key here. With some fairly sparsely populated reference columns. What I want to do is analyze this data by aircraft type or by manufacturer, for example. So in order to integrate these two data sets, I'm going to do a join. But first, I want to just clean this up a little bit and make sure that the key really is unique. And the ways that you can do that, many different ways, but we have calculations here which take advantage of the Snowflake capabilities. You can do simple things like an NVL. You can do checksums if you're doing slowly changing dimensions, those kind of things, or you can invoke your own much more sophisticated UDFs if you want as well. So with a nullif and a calculation on top of there, we'll have some extra columns in the table. And there we go. Instead of a nasty blank, I now have an unknown type. And if I scroll down, I've got some sensible data later on. And the last thing that I'll show you in here is something which works really well on Snowflake, which is deduplication. So I don't fully trust this data, so I want to make certain that my primary key really is a primary key. So you can use one of these components, which I've dragged on here, and I've just told it that I want to make the tail number unique. And actually that generates a piece of SQL like that, if you're interested. Again, another thing you do not have to write by hand, but when it runs, you can take advantage of the great speed at which it runs on Snowflake. So I have a join, which is the way to integrate the two data sets, and you just specify primary key to foreign key like this. And then the final component here saves that data into a new table. And I'll show you the generated SQL from this. Of course, if you're a SQL expert, you can write this. But one of the great benefits of Matillion is that you don't have to. And when you come to maintain it, there's my filter criteria, for example, that I put in before. It's very much easier to maintain. So what I've got here is basically a simple denormalization, which you might do to pass this data on for analytics, for example, or maybe to a machine learning algorithm. You can, of course, create any data structure that you want. Ben was using slowly changing dimensions, for example. You can also implement data vaults, star schemas, and of course, Snowflake schemas as well in Snowflake. So I'm going to switch tack for a moment. I've been showing you an example using these two database tables. I'm going to now talk about where that data came from. For that purpose, I'm going to open this job. Now, Matillion being an ELT tool, there is really a very big distinction between the data manipulation jobs, like the one I was just showing you there, and the what we've called orchestration jobs, which fulfill, which I have on the screen here, which fulfill the dual purpose of data extracting and loading, and also that command and control function. So this kind of thing that you can see on the screen now is more like a classic flow that you might see in a legacy tool. And again, with that familiarity, I'm sure everybody can guess immediately that you start here, then it does this, then it splits out into 3 parallel threads, does various things, waits for all of those things to finish, and then does a few things at the end of the job. And I'll talk you through what's going on here. As Ben mentioned, because this is the world of the cloud, you can easily and very quickly scale up and down your Snowflake infrastructure. And this is the typical kind of thing that you would like to do 3 o'clock in the morning, unsupervised, run this, process this large amount of data very quickly on a large warehouse. When it's finished, in order to save cost, scale it right back down to an extra small, or if you want even to suspend the virtual warehouse. So you don't have to plan 5 years ahead and try to figure out how much infrastructure you're going to need, like I used to have to do when I was an Oracle DBA. So some of the things I wanted to highlight in here, you've seen the command and control aspect. I want to spend a bit of time talking about the features which are in here, which I've highlighted. These are just a selection of data loading components. And I'll talk you through these, and in a moment, just run you through some other options broadly that we offer as well. So probably the single most widely used component just across the board is this cloud storage load. In Azure, it's a blob storage load. In GCP, it's a Google Cloud Storage load. in AWS, it's an S3 load like this. And this just takes a bunch of files from your cloud storage and loads them very quickly into Snowflake. This, of course, is the flight data. This is the thing I was showing you 10 minutes ago. This is how I got that data into Snowflake using this component. For those who are interested, it also generates a scary looking piece of SQL like this. Another thing that you do not have to type in. You simply go through the dialog here and it generates the SQL for you. This component here was where I took my reference data, my aircraft data. It was held in a MySQL database. In fact, this was an RDS. If you're sharp-eyed, you'll recognize that as an RDS URL. But of course, this works on MySQL, a SQL Server, an Oracle, Teradata, any one of these ones that you might already have, either on-prem or in the cloud. And it runs a select statement that looks like that. It's just selecting the columns out of that table. And you can put a filter if you want to do an incremental load as well. So this data was my aircraft data. Previously, it was siloed. Of course, I can't easily join cloud storage to MySQL, but I've loaded them both into Snowflake, and then I can do the integration very efficiently. For reference, I'll show you one of our commonly used SaaS connectors. This is Salesforce, and similar sort of thing. You authenticate yourself some way, and then you get access to the Salesforce data model from there using their API. And this encapsulates probably 500 lines of code that you'd have to do to if you were writing this yourself. Incidentally, this also shows an incremental loading pattern as well, where I maintain a variable, which is my high watermark load. I will spend a couple of minutes and just show you some of the load components which you can use. I'm going to expand all of these and just scroll through them slowly. Hopefully, you will all be able to read this off my screen. Broadly, 5 main categories of data sources. There are file-based, like I've showed you up here, for loading large files into the database. Relational data sources like database query and RDS query. There are a large number, as you can see, of cloud SaaS type connectors like Facebook, Salesforce, YouTube, etc. There are half a dozen or so different varieties of semi-structured or NoSQL type sources like Cassandra and Mongo. Of course, at this point, many people will be thinking, well, I have a data source that isn't in that list. How can I do that? So we also have this very flexible, very configurable API query component, which allows you to bring data in to Snowflake from a REST API. So very flexible, and that's for those unique cases where there isn't a dedicated connector. Many hundreds of things I have not showed you in this demo. For example, the scripting components, the error handling, the notification, enterprise features like the Git integration, data lineage, auto documentation. But it's very easy to try those things out for yourself. And I'll just spend 2 minutes to explain a couple of the options for you. You can go on the marketplace, and this is publicly available. I'm showing you the AWS marketplace here, and there's an hourly cost, a couple of dollars for an hour if you take our recommended size. You can run this for 14 days for free, by the way. You won't get charged. Or for Snowflake customers, you can go on the Partner Connect, and you can find us on Matillion. And again, you'll get a free instance of Matillion, which will run for 14 days. So quite a unique pricing model with Matillion here as well. Okay, those are the main features that I wanted to show you just in the demonstration. I hope that was useful. I'm going to hand back at this point to Andy just for general Q&A.
Thanks, Ian. if you don't mind just stopping sharing your screen just so that we get all, there we go. Perfect. Nice to see everyone again. Yes, we've had lots of questions. Thank you very much for sending them in. We'll do our best to get through as many as we can. Anything that we can't get through, we will be able to send you answers after the show. Also, there's a couple of people asking about slides and some of the specific questions. I think it's worth flagging up that after this show is available, it's available on demand almost instantly after we've finished. So if there's anything you'd like to go over again, or rewind and pause on a slide or what have you, you can do that. Also, you might see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen at the moment, there's an attachments tab. And in there, you'll find things, some resources, one of which is a Matillion test drive demo. There's a lot of specific questions. You might find the answers there, but we'll try and get to as many as we possibly can now in this question section. I'd like to say thank you to both presenters, by the way. Excellent job. Thank you very much. First question is to you, Ian. I think it's probably a good general one to open up with. Somebody's asked about the sort of difference between ELT and ETL, or the benefits wherewith as well, I suppose.
Oh, good one. Thank you. Yeah, if anybody who was really sharp-eyed would have noticed that we call our product Matillion ETL, but we're very careful when we describe it to describe it as an ELT tool. And really, there is a very big important difference, apart from the kind of practical implication of the two different kinds of jobs that I showed you in the demo. If you are working with an ETL tool, then you need to have two pieces of powerful and therefore expensive infrastructure. Number one, your database, and number two, some infrastructure to run your ETL logic. And we see that as, frankly, a little bit wasteful. If you've already got a very big, powerful database which you're using to run reporting from, take advantage of that for doing your data transformation. Hence, do those things the other way around. Extract from source, load that data as is into your Snowflake database, and transform it in the database afterwards. So ELT.
Perfect. And I think this one is more obviously for you, Ben. So was there any business impact as part of the cloud migration? And if so, how did you address it?
So, sorry, could you repeat?
Yeah, sorry.
I had a lag.
So was there any business impact as part of the cloud migration? And how did you address it?
Business impact was, yes, two things. The current solution is just not performant enough, was too slow in daily work. So the ETL, ELT job was at the end not the main issue, the 180 minutes as the line we reached. But with the traditional tools, we were not able to query the 30 million rows per day just fast enough. So that was, the customer were not really happy anymore. And on the cost side, it's much more expensive. So what we have now, we will save money in 2 years, inclusive the cost of the project. So it's just this year and next year, and then we will be cheaper, inclusive the costs of the project than we were before. Just simple example, I can be quite open with that costs. We spent since January for Snowflake working the project, so 4 people working 8 hours a day, more, less than 3,000 Swiss francs for Snowflake.
Okay.
So yeah. If you just imagine you buy an Oracle instance, you're at least at 30,000, 40,000, I don't know the real numbers. It's for sure higher. If you have a traditional ETL tool like Informatica or a business object data services, you will spend a lot of money for buying this tool and spend money for a yearly fee, maintenance fee. So even there, it's not expensive what we have right now for what we can deliver, what we are able to do. So in total, we will save money really fast. Okay, that's great. Well, there's a good question about the cost profile. Looked like to old platforms. You kind of covered it a little bit there, but I thought I might give Ian the chance to have his say on it as well. So
So what does the cost profile look like compared to the old platforms?
Yeah, indeed. Two probably main features there. Really, it's the world of cloud pricing. So you are there's a lot of transparency up front. You're really in control of it. You can switch your resources on and off. You can scale them up and down on demand as you see fit. And you really don't have to do any to make any long-term commitment. And it's really those kind of things that would have been really impossible when you're dealing with big pieces of infrastructure that you're managing yourself. So much of that is just so much quicker in the cloud pricing world, and also I have to say significantly cheaper as well. Just take a look, and a lot less opaque. It's very much simpler to understand what you're going to be paying. I showed you briefly the pricing model on the marketplace there, so you can easily see.
Yeah.
Just one thing there. We currently spend less money for Matillion than we spend for the 3 servers we had in the productive environment right now, just for running the tool. Not cost for the tool, just the server.
Okay, so that, I mean, that's a clear indication of the sort of direction you'd be going in. But, you know, if you were looking at that sort of stuff, there's another one for you, I think, Ben. How did you address the data security / privacy in the cloud with what you had on premise?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of the biggest parts to getting the okay for the project. We are quite sensitive to security in the company, and so it was not this easy. But at the end, BKW has a cloud-first strategy. So that was the first door opener that we are open-minded to go to the cloud. And then we had the lucky situation that we had with Snowflake, a partner which has all the letters of agreement you need to have to go into the cloud. Matillion can just say, sorry, nothing to do with us. You run on your private cloud, and all the data is in Snowflake, so there is no risk with Matillion. And Looker at the end the same, because the data is always only in Snowflake and not in Looker. So if somebody would hack Looker, they would be able to run the queries through our database. Yes, they could download 5,000 rows from the 30 millions or 11 billions in total, and we would recognize it. So this was not this difficult, because yes, Matillion can run on our private cloud. This is secure as much as we think it can be secure. So after we had the okay for Snowflake, it was not a big deal to get the okay for Matillion and Looker.
Yep. Okay. And this one might be for both of you, but I'll come to you first, Ben, if that's okay. There's an obvious cost to transitions to a new platform like Matillion, which we've covered. If the business case for this is scale, what's the tipping point when a tool like Matillion, or Matillion specifically, starts giving significant benefits? So obviously you're running millions and millions of lines, but what would you say the tipping point, or is there a tipping point?
I think what Matillion, or in general, everything what we do, you could do freehand. There is no need to buy a tool. You could write all these SQL code freehand. You could use Python. You could use whatever you want. Where Matillion has its huge strength is that it's clustered in a proper interface with very much predefined transformation apps, tools, which you can just use. So it's quite easy for not 100% technical guys to do simple jobs. And technical guys can run perfect jobs. And that's a huge difference. If you do it with freehand SQL, then my SQL would run but would not be good. The SQL for my developer from expert would run perfect. My ETL from Matillion works the same than his. He is maybe able to do it faster. He's maybe able to do it more flexible because he's using more variables. He is maybe using a clever general approach. But Matillion gives me the possibility that not 100% technical people still can do a great job. And that's opens the world for everybody at BKW who wants to transform data, who wants to report data in my system, but who doesn't want to define a clear structure, just mock-ups, prototyping. Things like, hey, I have a data set just loaded into the cloud. I want to test if it's fast enough, if it's easy enough, if I can access it. In the old world, it would take ages because I would never let somebody different than my teammates onto my tool. Nobody would be allowed to just load data into my data warehouse using my classical tools. With Matillion, I can say, okay, go for it. You have an own warehouse. You get an own database in Snowflake. If you mess up, come to me. I will help you. If not, be happy you're good.
Perfect. And would you like to add anything to that, Ian, in terms of scale? I mean, is this the sort of premise of the big boys, or are you talking to companies of all sizes there?
Yeah, that's a nice summary there, Ben. I'll tell you the one thing that always sticks in my mind. I worked for many years as a ETL database consultant, and I was called in on site one day to fix a problem, and I had to edit a big 3,000 long line piece of SQL, and I was cursing and trying to figure out what on earth was going wrong, and thinking, "Oh, who wrote this? Just awful garbage." And then it was me last week. For me, the big thing is the maintenance savings. Yes, if you employ a great SQL expert, they can do something clever, but then they go, and you have to maintain that. And if you're not maintaining your data warehouse, it's a dead project. So for me, that's the big thing.
Perfect. Well, we do have many more questions. I think, though, we run to the end of this one, unfortunately. For now, though, I'd like to say a really, really big thank you to Ben over at BKW. Thank you very much. Joining us from Switzerland as well. If you can't tell with this kind of thing, but yeah, joining us from Switzerland. So thanks very much for joining us, and thanks very much to Ian Funnell as well. And we'll see you at the next one. So thanks, guys, and see you later. Thank you.
Bye.